Good morning, all. Welcome to binary.com. Welcome to our weekly live room here, starting at 8 a.m. UK time every Monday. So, this is a live room here, and we're going to take a look at the charts and technical analysis, to be precise, on the majors. First of all, though, we are going to take a look at this PowerPoint as an introduction. Once again, it's hosted by binary.com, and my name is Chris. First of all, though, the risk disclaimer explaining that trading for exchange and global financial markets is considered high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this webinar is for educational purposes only. If you're watching the recording, you can pause the video. If you're watching this live webinar, then by continuing watching this webinar, you agree with the risk disclaimer and the content mentioned here. Good. So thank you for your attention. If you want to get the recording and watch it later on again, or for the first time, take a look at blog.binary.com/weeklytradingroom, and you'll get the recording ready when it's ready. Today's goal, we're going to take a look quickly at the calendar. Last week we had NFP figures and Euro zone news, and it had its influence, its volatility influence on the currency. Let's take a look at the longer term perspective together. First of all, though, what can we expect this week? Let's take a look at the calendar. We have not so much news throughout Monday, just some lighter news and medium impact news according to this source. And we do have the Japanese monetary policy statement coming up. We tomorrow have some pound and USD heavy impact news. We do have Wednesday FOMC meeting minutes. That's always big, plus Aussie employment change and unemployment rate. Thursday we have pound bank rate and G20 meetings. And Friday G20 meetings and some USD news. Good. So with that said, let's head over to our charts and take a look at technical analysis. Now, there are a lot of time frames we can look at, of course, to get an idea what could be happening. At the moment, we're looking at the Euro-Dollar 4-hour chart. And what I find interesting is the fact that, first of all, price is close to this blue line. That's a support line. What blue line is that? Basically, is this daily trend channel. And any of these dips was most of the time encountered support eventually. Not always at the same spot. Roughly, though, most cases at the bottom of this uptrend channel. Price is getting closer again to that channel. So there is definitely that probability that price can use this support level for more upside. Would it happen this time? We don't know for sure. Of course, it has happened several times. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen this time. It could break. In that case, price could be falling to lower grounds. For instance, the 78.6. It could fall to there, and that could be a bouncing spot. However, the more fibs we break, and eventually, of course, if we break this bottom, then things are looking actually bearish. We've broken the daily support. We've broken the daily uptrend channel. Well, then things logically are looking more bearish, and we will probably see extensions and a bigger fall. How much? We'll have to see. The next support levels are at various spots, like here, and here we have the blue lines here, and then here. So those could be then bouncing spots, but we'll have to see how strong the downtrend would be to judge how far it could go. But those could be levels where it could fall to. That's if we break that bottom. Now, for the moment, though, we're still in that uptrend channel. And as long as we stay in the uptrend channel, this last downside here that you see on the 4-hour chart could just be basically a retracement from our upside. But how do we know that? We have the downside level. The blue line is very important. For the upside, we see the orange line is very important because that connects the tops. And when the resistances break, that means we could be back into the uptrend swing here. We had this upside followed by what is potentially a correction. And if we break the orange line, that could be and signal the upside continuation potentially. So that might happen. We'll know soon enough which line will break or hold. It could actually stay, price could stay in between the orange and blue line for longer than we think. But eventually, of course, one will have to break. And trading the break or trading a pullback are potentials logically. That is always your decision. But a break of those lines could indicate potentials. I would probably be a bit more careful and wait for more confirmation though. because those are big lines. If you look at the 1 hour chart, you can see that this is the black line indicating support, the orange indicating resistance, and NFP had this volatility, a lot of ups and downs here, the usual volatility during such a news event. But all in all, it didn't really have much effect. It didn't really go down a lot. It kind of like stopped at the 61.8 fib, because if you look at the 4 hour chart and put a fib on the very last swing high, swing low, then we see prices pretty close to the 61.8, or maybe even bouncing off of it. That will be another potential support reason for the currency to go up. So let's see, anything else? Weekly chart, we can see that price did try to push through the black trend line, try to push through this 61.8 fib. If we do get followed through, of course, the macroeconomics here of the ECB and the Fed will be definitely important. But if price does manage to push through again, then the 78.6 fib could be the target for the upside, which is the 143. If we see, as I said already, failure and break below blue, then maybe we can see this kind of downside, and maybe even further. All in all, price is moving up, but from a weekly perspective, we do see resistances here, and here, here, and here. Just the question is which one from this time frame will be the most important one. That's the weekly perspective. So we are in an uptrend on the daily. We are bumping into weekly, monthly resistance. Will that be strong enough to stop the daily uptrend? That we never know, and we'll find out just by keeping an eye on these lines, basically. You can see the daily chart. The moving averages are still bullishly aligned, for instance. So that is another clue that we're still, despite this downside pressure, still in that uptrend. And also we have divergence between these bottoms, for instance. If you compare these bottoms, most likely looking like divergence between these 4 hour worlds. So, in that regard, a bounce here and maybe a break are things to keep an eye on. If not, if we do bounce here and hit this resistance and then bounce off this, we could see price maybe staying in here and then has to make a decision, either down or up. Pound dollar basically has the same similar structure, roughly speaking. I mean, in the sense that price had a very strong upside. Here is also an uptrend channel. Let me show you on the daily chart. This is the uptrend channel on the daily. Connecting the bottoms, we see a clear channel, clear uptrend channel on the daily chart with the blue lines. So if you look at the 4 hour chart, most recently we bounced off of that daily uptrend channel. And now we're pretty close again back to that level. So that is one of the reasons that we're still in this uptrend channel. That's one of the reasons that we could expect potential bullishness. However, also here, there's a clear resistance line indicated by black. So we did break out of the orange trend channel, right? But when we broke, we didn't go too far before we went down again. So we can take the orange trend channel off. That's been broken. We do, however, still have that black resistance line. So here too, just like the euro dollar, we're stuck in between support and resistance. And one of the two is going to break. And which one breaks will most likely give a decent idea of the long-term picture, whether it's going to be bullish or bearish. So that's interesting. We did have a 61.8 bounce. So if we do break to the upside, that means our first target is the minus 272, which is at 169.70. Of course, we need to be aware of the daily resistance at 168.20 as well, which is the daily top. So if we do break above black, then roughly speaking, these orange zones here could be the spaces to the upside. If we break below blue, we could see maybe some fall to test this bottom. And if we break this bottom, the blue bottom here, then we could see maybe some further falls like this, down to the 78.6, then to the 886, then to the 100 level, and then maybe below that as well. Right? Those would be the spaces to the downside. In the meantime, though, before price actually breaks above or below, price could stay between them. And that's always a bit more dangerous trading, but it could actually do something like this, potentially make a triangle. Eventually, though, here too, a break seems likely. A break would be expected sooner or later at one point. This is how it looks like an hourly here too. We had a lot of volatility down, up, down, up, down, up, down. I mean, crazily, if you look at these hourly candles. But anyhow, you can see that there's not really much motion. There is some downside here at the moment, but seemingly this looks more like a momentum, and downside looks like a correction. So from that perspective, if we were to put an early fib on this upside, we can see price stopped at the 61.8, and the 61.8 could be the turning spot in that matter. So it also hooked back to that level. So this is a bouncing spot. Let me say it this way: will it bounce? That's the question. One of the levels to keep an eye on is this black trend line. The first indication could be even the lower one right in here in these moving averages for a first potential upside. However, we do bump into another resistance levels somewhere here pretty soon, right? So the black and the blue are more indicative of any longer term perspective. If you look at the hourly, that will give you just some idea of maybe intermediate future, maybe today, but not so much the rest of the week maybe. Looking at the weekly though, or the daily, we can see obviously an uptrend channel, so the break to the upside would make sense, would be better to trade, would be easier to trade because that's with the flow of the current market. Downside would be kind of like a reversal trade, and this would be all the space to the upside potentially when we do break to the upside. If we don't, then as I said, especially below 162.50, there could be space down to about 158.50, roughly. Will it go up? Will it go down in one shot? No. Price always makes ups and downs, of course, but that's roughly what I would expect. AUD/USD is basically at the moment making higher highs and higher lows. It has a very bullish candle last week, and we can see that price basically very bullish on Friday's candle. Also, the weekly chart had a bullish candle again. So there's definitely that reason to think that this is a bullish trend at the moment. However, if we put a fib on the last swing high, swing low, price did stop at the 61.8 fib. So the fact that price could use that as a resistance must be taken into account. That's a big level, and price could stop there. However, if price breaks above it, then we see more space up to the 78.6 potentially, and even maybe higher to 886. If price doesn't break one of these resistances and these fibs are respected, it could mean a bigger retracement or even a reversal. A reversal, however, would need to basically get some confirmation by getting lower lows and lower highs, break this orange support line, for instance, like this, and we could have a clue that the bigger reversal to the downside is going on. We'll especially probably need to break 91.30, for instance, and also make lower lows and lower highs, and then maybe this previous downtrend is in play again. But that's a big if. For the moment, it's up, and we are only basically, I'm only really interested in upside because this is an uptrend. So the only thing is that the uptrend has, of course, its potential resistances that we have to be aware of, and the 61.8 is potentially one of them. Other than that, the weekly chart is showing that downside, the bearishness, but as I said, that's old news in a way because at the moment we're moving up, even on the weekly chart. So 4-hour chart, we can see that we had some kind of like smaller correction here, some kind of triangle. Price broke out of that triangle to the upside during NFP. Like this, looks like a hook back. We could expect maybe more looking at the momentum. However, nothing is a guarantee, and that's something we have to be aware of course, but there is a decent chance that price could use these fibs as a bouncing spot up to at least the minus 272 target at 93.35, right? So that's what could happen here on the AUD/USD right there, and we'll have to see if this gets continuation, but from this structure I think I would be more interested in bullishness, and bearishness not so interesting for myself. And using this fib, for instance, on the hourly could make a lot of sense regarding the structure. So wouldn't expect anything below this level personally, and any of these fibs could be bouncing spots. Maybe even the 38.2 here. Price did come close to tagging it. Let's take a look at the dollar yen. Dollar yen, not so interesting. I do like the AUD/USD more because that's in a nice, decent trend at least. Then after that, probably euro dollar and pound dollar are even, are split. And least interesting for me is the dollar yen because it did make a a big upside here. I'm not saying this recent part was a good impulse momentum. However, if you look at the entire structure on the 4-hour chart, things are quite choppy. I mean, you have price moving down here, and then up a bit, and then down a bit, and then up a bit. So I'm not still 100% convinced about the uptrend here, just because price moved a bit up here. I'm not 100% convinced. Also, if you look at the weekly chart, we have a resistance line pretty close by. That's a major resistance line, and price is moving up to that. So that could be, cause reason to be a bit cautious. If you look at the daily, also we had a very bearish candle on Friday, um, so I'll be cautious with that. Look like bearish engulfing twins. This could still be just a retracement from our upside. However, from a weekly perspective, we need to break this purple line really to get more clue that we're really in a bigger uptrend. When we break that bigger monthly, weekly trend line, then we have space up to higher targets. Above this weekly and monthly trend line, there's potential to go up to the minus 272 target at 107.80. Then if we break that up to the minus 618 target at 110.80, those are potential upside targets that make sense to me once we break that weekly monthly resistance. Until then, though, there's nothing that says that we necessarily are going to do that. Yes, we did have a lot of upside here. Yes, we had a triangle. Yes, we had another break. Yes, this could be a pullback from our upside. But because of the big weekly resistance line, there's no guarantee about that. Nothing is a guarantee, but there's not a decent chance for that. I mean, there's a decent chance, but not an overwhelming chance. So if we look at the daily, we put a fib on this last move up on the weekly. We can see price stopped at the 50 fib and has been bouncing up and down ever since. Is that a correction for price to go down to the 61.8 and then bounce? Or is that indeed the turning spot from our upside? We have to keep an eye on the purple lines basically for that answer. The purple lines are key. For the moment though, if I zoom into the hourly, it looks like to me like this downside is very much of a momentum. So personally, what I'm looking for, if you like Elliott wave theory, I'm looking for, and I don't want to bore anyone else who doesn't like it, but what I'm looking for is probably like an A, B, C correction here. The B could stop any of these fibs, and the C probably goes to the minus 618 or the minus 272. That's something that I would be looking for potentially, and if that happens, these targets could be interesting bouncing spots. So that could happen. Otherwise, for the moment, in general though, not a big fan of this dollar yen until it really breaks above those resistance or supports that I mentioned. But in the intermediate term or short term, I would be looking at this for the dollar yen, personally. XAU-USD broke our blue uptrend channel, fell all the way to the support at 1280. Now 1280 was a bouncing spot, as we said, a potential bouncing spot between 1250 and 1280, and price seems to be bouncing right there, right then, and is now on the upside. We had the bullish day on Friday, so it's a bit of a mixture. Just like the dollar yen, not a big fan of this. It hit the 50 fib. Is that a bouncing spot from our upside? Right? Is that a hook back from our upside? We do have higher highs and higher lows, or higher highs at least. We had a double bottom and higher highs now. Is this the first higher low? That remains to be seen. Looking at the weekly chart, we do have a weekly bullish candle right here. So it could be a bullish indication. In that case, this could be a hook back up to, for instance, the 38.2 fib, and the stop, for instance, we could make a move up till there. That would be the next resistance level. The 38.2 and the blue, light blue line there. If we break above that, the 50 and the next blue light blue line are resistances. And above there, the 61.8. Those are all resistance levels. Support levels, as I said, the dark blue lines, and then of course the bigger bottom, logically speaking. Those would be support lines. So price would need to break through that support lines to have more indication of downside. For the moment, it does look like a bullish price action signal. However, the entire structure doesn't really look too appealing to me because of its many ups and downs now. Not really that big fan of it. Let's take a look at the 4-hour. Price did break out of this downtrend channel like that. So if anything, there could be maybe a bullish rebound here, but that's probably the most likely. However, if price does break below blue, then the next support level could be here. And otherwise, maybe for instance on the hourly we can look at a break above this top, for instance. That could signal the more likelihood of more upside. That's an hourly top, I know, so maybe less important, but a break above the hourly top could indicate the willingness for the currency to keep pushing up with higher highs and higher lows, and then start retesting this top, for instance. Right, so there could be the willingness to move higher. And the next resistances could be these fibs too, by the way. But the bigger resistances, I would say, are the 61.8, the 78.6, and the bigger top. So there seems to be at least some space to the upside. Well, folks, if you have any questions, let me know. We'd gladly take a look. Write a chat to me. So or the let's see, the presenter or host and presenter, okay? So I can see the chat if you have any questions. In the meantime, though, I thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here and spending these 20 minutes with us today. We'll be back, of course, next week with another 20 minutes, roughly 20 minutes video and webinar, live webinar on the 14th of April, same time, 8 a.m. UK time, and we'll take a look at basically a quick introduction of what we can expect in the market next week. You can get that link through blog.binary.com/weekly trading room. Now, I don't see any questions. If you still do, let me know. Otherwise, I'll wrap it up for today, and thank you so much for your attention, and see y'all next week. Cheers.